going to be looking, and we're going to be doing a discussion about HIV/AIDS. Now, the first thing
Laura Seabright is a science teacher at Crofton School in Lewisham. She's about to carry out an experiment that simulates infection, but more specifically HIV, a sexually transmitted infection. Also in Laura's classroom is Ralph Levinson, an education expert who is assessing the lesson. Ralph's first concern is how Laura addresses the topic's sensitivity.
This is exactly the kind of topic that will provoke laughing amongst the children. There may be some nervousness about it. Some pupils indeed may feel vulnerable about that because they might have relatives who have the condition.
All right, so this activity is about getting infected or not, as the case may be.
You have to say whether you're teaching any issue, sort of cancer or HIV or abortions or anything that you ever touch on when it's a controversial issue, you just have to say that this is a sensitive issue because of either religion, because it can affect you individually. So just be sensitive about it. And if you say something silly, just be aware that the person sitting next to you might have had experience of it, and it could be something that upsets them.
The tubes contain milk, all except one, which contains a starch solution. This represents the infection. When the fluids are mixed, and mixed again, the starch infection will spread around the classroom.
What do you think this model's showing? What do you think this practical's showing?
Is it how diseases are spread and how they divide up? They come together and then they divide up and then they divide up even more afterwards.
Yeah, that's one of the ways. And how, in the case of this disease, do you think, what do you think that the fluid might be representing?
But it can be through, sperm can be through anything, sexual intercourse really, or blood.
Okay. So what did it show us? What did that experiment show us?
It shows us how quickly and how easy it is to get infected by something so little.
Okay, good, well done.
Sleeping around's not good.
Carleen, please, when you are making any comments, make sure that you are thinking about it sensitively, all right? And let's make sure that we're being polite and we're not using slang words for anything that we're talking about today.
I thought there was a lovely point about, you sort of address the sensitivity. You were very clear and calm, and they were calm.
I think encourage them not to use slang and not to, I know I said earlier, bring in their own experience, their moral things, but they mustn't be thinking about personal experiences in that. They've got to be sensible. They know what the mature level is. They don't use slang, they do it scientifically, they talk about it. They know what's appropriate and what isn't.
Okay, everyone please be looking at me. Right, you have exchanged and mixed up your solutions about 3 times now. What I would like to test for is to see who has been infected. And I've got some iodine solution.
The iodine represents an HIV test. The infected samples will contain starch, which turns blue on contact with iodine.
And can you give it a shake, folks? Shake it.
I wasn't infected. Why not? I don't know. The other people were clean.
I swapped with 3 people and I got infected.
I swapped with 3 people and I got infected.
I swapped with 3 people and I got infected.
So with the experiment over, what are Ralph's first impressions of how Laura is handling the lesson?
I think this is clearly a teacher who's got a rapport with the class and can get them working in a purposeful way. And I think that's very good in a lesson where there are clearly going to be contentious issues at stake. There are a few points I would make. I thought she maybe could have set the context of the lesson a lot more clearly at the beginning. Why are we doing this? What's the point? That we're looking into prevention versus cure. And maybe to give a sense of what HIV is really about, how many people are infected, what the scale of the condition is, that kind of thing.
Laura follows the experiment with a short quiz to establish what the class knows about HIV and address any misconceptions.
I'd like you to all look at the quiz that you've got in the middle of your tables. And can you please spend 1 minute going through the quiz and deciding whether it's true or false. So, if we do the first one together, AIDS is caused by HIV, a virus. You would put a circle in or colour in the box that says true if you thought it was true, or false if you thought it was false.
Can help a person with HIV live longer. That's true. Because HIV is transmitted, spread throughout body, bodily fluids.
At the beginning of the lesson, you introduced the practical and mentioned about pathogens and so on. I wondered whether there was a point there in which you might have been able to introduce more the context of the lesson as a whole.
I think I could have used that starter as a main activity, to be honest with you, and if I had more time, I think I would have drawn more out of it. I also wanted to be careful when I did the practical that I wasn't relating to the liquid they had in the tube to sort of sperm, basically, because I thought it could get quite... If the kids were saying, oh, I'm not going to swap my tube with you. So I wanted to be careful, but I think, yeah, probably I could have put more emphasis on that with more time, I think.
Sure.
AIDS is caused by HIV, a virus. Is it true, false, or you're just kind of stuck in the middle? Okay, and that is true. So, right, the people with sexually transmitted infections are at a greater risk of being infected with HIV/AIDS. People with sexually transmitted infections are at a greater risk of being infected with HIV and AIDS. So we've got some debate on this. What do you think on that table at the back? Why have you put false?
Because I think that anyone can really get AIDS and there's no like higher risk in any form. It's just that if you have sex with somebody that has AIDS, then you've got the same amount of chances as somebody with an infection has.
Right, AIDS or HIV?
HIV.
HIV, because HIV is the virus and AIDS are the symptoms when it's in late HIV.
We have done quite a lot at this school with sexual health. I think it's good that they're open, because if these kids don't have that stigma, which is holding back a lot of countries and a lot of places, then, you know, the future's good for them and others around them as well.
Well, I was saying that me and my classmate, we were just discussing that how a person looks. How can you tell a person has HIV? Can you tell by looking directly at them? And we thought, no, it's wrong, because some people look at someone and say, oh, look, she looks like she got HIV, and that's wrong because you can't tell.
HIV, it breaks down your immune system. If I had a cold and I passed it on to somebody that had HIV, it's more likely that person, if they can't fight it because their immune system can't fight the disease, it's likely that they could die because of that one infection, what may be small to me but big to the person.
And most children, like when you become an age of like my age, 15, 16, like you start to get sexual feelings and like hormones and things like that. And if you know how to deal with it, you like treat it better. So that's another important reason.
It wouldn't matter if someone in the classroom had HIV, because you wouldn't catch it. And then if like you had unsafe sex with a person or something, that's about it.
I had a talk with one of the kids on that desk, and they were so sort of mature in the way they were talking about it. It was really lovely. So they really took it very seriously, and there was sort of a lovely atmosphere about that.
Okay, we are going to move on to the main activity where we're going to be discussing HIV and some issues related to HIV and AIDS.
For the second part of the lesson, Laura asks the class to imagine they're the government of a small country and to assign a set amount of funding to treatment or prevention of HIV. In doing this, she's getting them to think about the wider issues of the HIV epidemic.
A person with a sexually transmitted infection or STI, like the drop, may have a discharge or sores on his or her private parts. This makes it easier for the HIV germ to get into the body during sex.
And if you've got to think about this in a big context, how would you develop, if you were a government looking about how you're going to stop HIV, what sort of thing would you have to be thinking about?
1 billion times 10 equals 10 billion. 6 billion is going to take 100,000 people. 60,000 people. So over half, but not all.
Because they need the young people to build up the country for development. And if the young people die, then they would have to spend more money on educating them to do the work.
Okay, so you've already done your budget already, you seem ahead of the other groups, and you've written all the different things that you want to spend it on. Does anybody want to briefly tell me how you come to these decisions?
Well, we decided to do more for prevention, because obviously the people that have it already, there's nothing we can do for it because like there's not a cure. For prevention, we decided to put education in schools so that people are more aware of the symptoms of HIV and AIDS and how like not to get it or whatever.
Yeah, they have saying, drop a crazy door and a rubber glove. Certain kids.
I thought generally, I thought what happened is that they thought about things and actually they gave reasons for them, and they, really thought about justifying things, which, in terms of any lesson on a controversial issue, is really good.
Well, I was surprised actually the way I said, right, you just have to allocate it to prevention or treatment. And then they took it and they actually wrote suggestions. Well, this billion units is going towards antiretrovirals and this is going to healthcare centres to make people feel better because we can't actually afford the drugs for them. So let's go for something that's going to be a bit more widespread and deal with more people but isn't actually going to cure it, but it's going to make them feel better. And that was really impressive.
Okay, who's going to be the first group to present that's going to stand and take the place of the teacher? Want to be the first group?
Representatives of the groups then tell the rest of the class where they have allocated their resources and why they made those decisions.
Yeah, we couldn't really decide because they were saying that more money should go to prevention and I was saying more money should go to treatment because they think that prevention... Oh, why did you not say that?
And I thought that lovely bit with the kids at the front saying they haven't reached a consensus, but let's just talk about the differences.
Well, they were still arguing when I went next door, to be honest with you. They were still getting upset about it. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, well, that's about the best comment you can have on a lesson where, you've discussed something contentious, that they're actually going out of the classroom and engaging with it.
So if they did know how to prevent themselves, then they'd have to use less money. So if we put more for prevention, then we wouldn't need so much for treatment.
But, with treatment, it's if you put more money for prevention, it's not sexually transmitted diseases don't always come through through having sexual intercourses. You can also get it from birth and stuff like that and breast milk. So it's not, you can't really say that you can prevent that. So it wouldn't be fair for most of the money to go towards prevention than treatment because there's other people in the world who are still going to have to suffer.
The way they were sort of showed respect to each other, listened, argued, discussed. I mean, all those were very important factors. And I think also they might need to be named almost to say, you were sensitive to each other, that you were kind of listened properly. And I think they just need to be aware that, those are things that are part and parcel of a contentious issue.
The reason why we've set it out like this is that we think less money should be situated on treatment because what it is people with HIV at the moment we haven't got a cure for it and they're going to pass away eventually. So we've decided for treatment that there should be more ARVs, drugs, who should be passed out, new styles of treatment. Because there are people who forget to take their drugs, and so we think there should be an injection that they can take every week, which could be put in by the doctors, through their GPs.
It's really good.
First of all, the first issue that our group had, first we thought 50-50, but then I said that we should do 6-4 because the people that already have HIV, there are more than the people that are negative. So that's why we thought 6-4. And plus of all, we need to spend more money on those with HIV positive.
I thought it was great, and really good model of what a lesson like this should be about.
Invest in new treatments and machineries to help the people with HIV positive with the pain that they're going through and try and educate their family and people around them to try and not treat them differently but to make them live their life to the full potential.